right. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Conflict Radio. Today is July 18th, 2024, and we are back after taking 3 weeks off. Sorry about that, everybody. I had, to be completely honest with you guys, my father has been having health issues, so we actually had to take a ride, about 12-hour drive, and go spend some time with him. And I am back home now and ready to go. I hope everybody's doing well. I see King of Hookah here. Davy Jones Locker, how you doing? Taz, Robert Bell, Puck's Elf is here. And I guess you guys will just keep piling in as the show goes on. I see that the magic number 17 has a bunch of people in here. I'd like to welcome George Sewell to the show. George, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
We actually are Dan Baldwin might pop in and hang out with us in a little bit. I guess he's going to work on his mic issues. If not, George, it's all yours, buddy.
We'll make do.
All right. Well, I hope he's listening. I see Monica joined the party, and Champa the Fatso is here, and it looks like Dan's trying to get back in. Let's see if we can hear him. Dan, you there? Okay. Let's see here if I can make that go away so we can see us. So Dan's in here somewhere. I guess we're gonna see if we can if he starts talk. If we start hearing you, Dan, we will
we will see some Dan. There, we see Dan.
Yeah, we can see you, buddy, but your mic's just not working. Yeah, I can't hear you. I can't hear you at all. I don't know why that is, but okay, not quite human. How you doing? Sorry, Dan. I don't know what's happening there. So we're gonna move on. George, tell us a little bit about this book, Paranormal Pendulum 3. Now, you do a lot of dowsing and work with pendulums. Do you have some there you could show us?
I do, yeah. When Dan's back on screen, he's got quite a collection of pendulums. What I've got here is it's a piece of turquoise from my late wife's jewelry, and just a red string, and this works very well for me.
So what do you actually do with that? What can you find? You just go out somewhere and you just give it intention or what? Like
the way I use it and the way Dan and I use it when we're researching, it's a research tool. That is, we're attempting to learn something about either a location or a people's or an event. And we're using the pendulum as a means for us to access a vast array of information that otherwise we would not be able to do. The way Dan describes it, and I think he's spot on, is when we use the pendulum, in effect, whatever the rock or the object is that adds the weight, it doesn't have to be anything particular, just a weight on a string. But in looking at the weight on a string, in effect, that focuses our consciousness and at the same time kind of opens up the unconscious to have better access to whatever realm has the information that we are seeking. And then it's downloaded into our subconscious, and the subconscious then will make very subtle manipulations, in this case, in my fingers, to create a swing of the pendulum. And then a clockwise swing for me means a yes. A counterclockwise swing means no. And a just hang there or swing back and forth, in my case, usually means rephrase the question.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be on any kind of special string. It doesn't have to be any kind of special stone. Like I can have a fishing line with a fishing weight on the end of it, and that would work just as well.
Yeah, fishing line with a lead sinker. Yeah, you're good to go.
All right. So tell us a little bit about how you discovered that this works, and I guess you were looking for some missing kids.
That's where Dan first used the pendulum, and when he comes on, and I'm pretty sure he will at some point, he can explain how that developed. But in a summary, about 25 years ago or so, Dan was out taking a walk near his house in the desert in Arizona, and he was just overwhelmed with the thought of find missing children. And okay, it was a pretty impactve thought. And he was meditating on how on earth can I find missing children? And he just went to a New Age bookstore one day and happened to see some individuals there working with pendulums. And he said, well, okay, I can probably handle that. So he got a pendulum and began practicing with it. And over the course of time became very proficient with it, proficient enough that for a number of years there, he was a part of a national team of psychics that law enforcement would often utilize, principally in searching for missing children, but also missing adults in some other situations. And although Dan was never given what percentages they were correct because they were used so frequently, they were thinking probably they were about 60 to 70% correct in what they were coming up with the pendulums.
All right. So Richard Hawkins has a question here. He wants to know, can you ask when you're holding the pendulum, do you rest your elbow on a table or not? Or do you just...
I rest my elbow just to keep everything supported.
Kind of still, right?
Yeah. There are people who, they'll flip it over their finger rather than hold it in their between their fingers. It doesn't really matter. I mean, the process is going to work irregardless of how the pendulum is held, and because it's the process that's important. It's not the rock on a string, so to speak.
So did he actually use it to find the kids?
Yes.
So how come he's not out there more doing that?
Well, again, this was very active quite some years ago. And that particular group, I understand, eventually just disbanded for whatever reason. But from time to time, he will do some pendulum work to find missing people at the request of either a local law enforcement or some other agency that he's familiar with.
So how many kids has he found altogether with it?
You'd have to ask him. I could not say.
All right. Let me ask you a question regarding the movement of the pendulum itself. I mean, we've all seen Ouija boards work and how they work. How do you know that the pendulum's not being controlled by an evil entity?
Well, first off, Dan and I don't mess with evil entities. We're not open to it. If they're out there, fine, but they're not in my neighborhood, and I'm not going to go looking for them.
Yeah, but just the fact of using a pendulum could be considered witchcraft, therefore bringing the evil entity to you, whether you want it to or not.
That is not an accurate belief.
Okay.
The sheer use of the pendulum, you're just holding a weight on a string. That's all it is. And you're just asking a question to which you wish to receive a yes or no answer. And just the weight on the string allows your conscious mind to be distracted enough to allow your subconscious mind to access the Akashic records or your previous lifetime. Wherever the information is stored, your subconscious is more likely to access it, bring it down into your conscious mind, and then the subconscious will manipulate how you're holding the pendulum to give a yes, a no answer, or sometimes rephrase the question.
Okay. All right. So has it ever been wrong? Has it ever been wrong?
Well, I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I cannot recall a time where we have asked a question and we were given a yes or no answer that was not supported by further research. In any case where it's possible, we look for corroborating support for what the pendulum is presenting. In some of the books where we're dealing with the pendulum talking about, say, a famous person in the 19th century who was a famous American actress, Kate Bateman. Okay, she popped up. Well, there's a lot of hard evidence out in the world, if you will, in newsprint, magazines, and other 19th century print material where Kate was mentioned frequently, reviews of her plays, interviews with herself and her family. It just, it was amazing the information that was out there that I was able to access, and it would corroborate what we were getting with the pendulum. So that's a good thing. There are some cases where the information presented by the pendulum is such that there's no way we can access anything to verify it. What we do in that situation, we have some mediums that we often work with, as well as some other very skilled pendulum dowsers, and we will send the question to them independently and see what response they get with their skill set. And I think there's only been one instance where everything did not line up the same.
All right. So, Dan, can we hear you yet? No, man, still nothing. Yeah, I don't know. I got you, buddy. Have a good night, Dan. Thanks for trying.
Dan didn't put on his hat.
I mean, that sucks. It is what it is, I suppose. I mean, we'll roll with it. It seems like, we got plenty we could talk about. I have now, what if you're outside with the pendulum and it's windy or something? Do you take into account, count that there's wind? Can you only do it inside?
I have done pendulum dowsing outside, say at Poverty Point, a very historic archaeological site in northeast Louisiana. And if the wind kicks up, you're not going to work with the pendulum, because you can't have any effect on its swing in order to have confidence in whether it's saying yes or no. So if there's a pretty steady breeze or whatnot, you just have to wait or go inside.
Yeah, I guess so, huh? All right. What can you tell me about the spirit known as a Murloc? Is it
Morlock? What's
this story here?
Oh gosh, that was the subject of our book Paranormal Pendulum 3, which was using pendulum dowsing to research what was going on with a Shreveport woman named Lindsay Higgins. And she reported basically a lifelong interaction with what we would call extraterrestrials. In the literature, there'd be references she was often abducted. And made the acquaintance with Lindsay, and Dan and I had just finished working with the pendulum for a couple of his books on speaking to the spirits on the other side and whatnot. And I had the idea, let's use the pendulum to see if we can figure out what's going on with Lindsay. In most cases of UFO research into the abduction syndrome, usually it's through hypnosis or some sort of recall. That was none of that for Lindsay. She had some actual memory of some of these events, but we were able to utilize the pendulum to make contact in many cases with her favorite aunt, who grew up, or Lindsay grew up beside her aunt, and her aunt was very familiar with Lindsay's childhood experiences with interactions with what we would call extraterrestrials. And so using the pendulum, Lindsay was able to carry on a conversation with her late aunt. And the aunt was able, through the pendulum, to provide some answers to many of the questions that Lindsay had, and describe some of the occurrences or whatnot. So it was possible to have some very lengthy and very detailed conversations by means of the pendulum.
Well, you say detailed conversations. It's just yes or no, right?
The questions has to be phrased yes or no, because that's just the restrictions with the pendulum. But the detail, as long as it's a yes or no answer, you can get some incredible detail.
Yeah, if you ask a detailed question, say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's all in the questions. It's an example that Dan uses to emphasize the importance of the question is when he was in the early days of using the pendulum to look for missing children. one of the first things he would do is use the pendulum and say, well, first off, is little Susie alive? And he would get a yes answer. So, okay, there's more the reason to get the search going for little Susie. And lo and behold, days later, Dan would use the pendulum with map dowsing to locate a general area where little Susie would be located, and would come down to maybe a half-mile square area. And lo and behold, law enforcement would indeed find the remains.
So how would you do map dowsing?
Dan just uses a map. You've got the pendulum, and if you're looking for, say, a missing person, is the missing person in this county? Yes. Okay. Is this person in the northern part of the county? No. Is this person in the southern part of the county? Yes. Is this person, and if you got the map there, as much detail as you can take it down to, is this person located on South Street? Yes. And then you can, again, you can be as specific as the map can be to verify. And Dan's got some work that he's done that's been very, very, very detailed, very specific.
All right, you guys have a book on these techniques that teaches these techniques. I think Richard here wants to know.
Yeah. Dan Baldwin has a book on the Paranormal Pendulum, I believe is the name of it, and it's his explanation of using the pendulum as a means of dowsing the spirit world. And there's follow-up to that Paranormal Pendulum book 2, where he's using the pendulum again to converse in more detail with the spirits in the other side as to what their experience is, what it's like, what the transition was for them, and getting that kind of information from that particular realm. So the pendulum is a very useful tool in pursuing this kind of information.
All right. So how far back have you been able to trace the use of a pendulum?
Some sort of dowsing, and again, when we say dowsing, you can also think of holding the wiki sticks, dowsing for water. It's the same process. That goes back thousands of years. The use of a specific weight on a string or whatnot, that also goes back. I don't have any hard evidence as to where and when and who and how, but these are just common ways of divining information worldwide. There's nothing new about them.
All right. Okay. So tell us about a little bit about your new book, The Sky People.
In The Sky People,
you got a copy of that you can show us?
Yeah, it's fairly new. And what got us interested in this was, in much of our research in the other pendulum books, we were encountering ancient civilizations worldwide, and invariably they would tell of their ancestors having some sort of interaction with what they called the sky people, or sometimes they would call them the star people, emphasizing that whoever was interacting with their ancestors literally, physically came down from the sky to the village to interact with the inhabitants. And we encountered just enough of that. Well, let's see if we can get a handle on who or what were the sky people, and why were they having these visits? What was there a purpose, or what was the whole arena there? And
yeah, I could tell you from talking to Native Americans that I know that they don't really like talking about that kind of stuff, because they feel that the information they have about our past and about different realms and things like that is the only thing that they have that hasn't been stolen or taken from them.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually don't really like to talk about it. So the fact that people would talk to you about it is pretty interesting.
Well,
I've
yeah,
had a lot of them that talk to me about it, but they won't come on the show. They won't talk about
sure.
it on the air because they don't want their elders or other people in their tribe to know that they're the ones that are talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't like doing that at all.
No,
But yeah,
Dan.
there's definitely something's going on. I think that these entities have been here for a long time. I think if they're from another planet, they came here on a colonization mission, but I think that they've been here longer than we have, honestly. Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal Podcast wants to know where Dan is. Dan couldn't get his mic working, so he gave up trying, and George has taken over the show. Sorry about that, Journey. Hopefully you're doing okay. And yeah, it says King of Punkabunda said in the late 80s, early 90s, this was regularly talked about. So there's definitely a lot going on. Why don't we try to ask questions? Can we ask questions of the pendulum now while you can hold it up and we can all see it?
That's really not viable. Again, the pendulum is such a personal experience. I would hesitate to do it over this medium because there's no direct connection between me, the pendulum, and the individual.
Well,
So,
I'm not talking about asking questions from the obviously from the people. I meant like asking questions like you can ask, like,
oh, sure.
like is there aliens visiting us from other planets or things like that? I mean, you can ask those simple questions, and we can kind of give us a demonstration on something you want to know an answer to. Let's see it working.
Well, this isn't the environment to actually utilize the pendulum in that capacity, because I would have to make up a question, and it would be a made up question, so it wouldn't be a genuine searching.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I mean, you're not curious about anything right now?
Oh, I'm curious about a lot of things. In fact, I just returned from the Mutual UFO Network conference in Dallas the other day, and yeah, there's a lot of information out there.
All right, I'm just okay. So what else would you like to talk about then?
Well, oh gosh, there's so much. Where do we start?
Well, I think that being able to show us the pendulum working, like how it works, is a big part of what you're doing here. I mean, you got a lot of books that you sell on this kind of stuff, and I mean, let's see it.
Well, it's again, there's nothing to it. It's just a weight on a string. Let me see if I can get in position here where we can see it. And the knack in using it is developing the skill set to where you do not influence the swing with your subconscious or your unconscious working through the nerves in your fingers. That takes practice. That's the only thing that takes the effort in being effective with pendulum dowsing, is having that objectivity, and that's just something you develop with over time.
Okay. So ask it something.
Will Dan Baldwin? Well, no. Is Dan Baldwin joining us on the show? And you can see an immediate, robust no.
Okay. And then it just stops?
Yep.
All right. Let's ask it one more.
Does Dan Baldwin have more than one pendulum that he uses? And that's a pretty solid yes.
All right. Can you talk about what kind of messages you're getting? What Journey Through the Gate says, tell us about the messages you guys get.
In the sense with Pendulum, we don't get messages, we get yes or no answers to a question. When we're working with our psychics, they have a skill set where they can communicate more directly with the individual, and very often will convey more conversational information from the individual.
And Hugo Darn says, it worked. See, so now people see, do it. Actually doing it in front of people and showing people how it works. It actually really helps. So
yeah, it's nothing complicated, and it could be a nail on the end of a string. I mean,
can you ask it if the ex-president of the United States was set up on Saturday?
That would be an open-ended question that I would not have any confidence with the answer.
Oh, we could try. Well, it's already moving.
Well,
just you thinking about it. What's that? Rephrase it? Huh. I don't know. It seems like some weird stuff going on in the world. That's for sure. Well, can you ask it if how? I guess you can't ask specific questions like how long the aliens have been visiting Earth, or
it has to be a yes or no answer.
Have you asked religious questions of itself? Like, have you asked if like Jesus was a real person or things like that? Have you asked things like that?
No, none of our material has been along that line, and our use of the pendulum strictly as a research device for a specific project or a specific book that we're writing.
You haven't sat and asked it any kind of personal questions, like about your family, say, or like, you can't hold it up and be like, is my wife screwing around on me?
Nah.
you can't ask things like that.
Strictly use it as a research tool. And that's the limit of my use. I don't use it for anything that's personal or let's see what the pendulum's going to do. None of that silliness. It's use it for just a hard-nosed research, and whenever possible, research that will have that can hopefully be backed up through another independent means.
Can you ask the pendulum if it always gives you correct answers?
Well, you can ask it.
Go ahead.
It might lie to you.
Well, that's the point, right?
So I wouldn't ask a question of that nature. Again, that's just not the way I use the tool.
All right. Can you use it to find gold or water or things like that?
Pendulum dowsing has been very successful in finding water. I have no information on whether it's been used successfully in finding minerals.
Well, you should take a ride out to Phantom Canyon in Colorado and have it, bust up a map and see where the good gold deposits are. Phantom Canyon. If nobody's ever been to Phantom Canyon, Colorado, you got to take a ride through there up to from Canyon City to Cripple Creek. It's quite fascinating. Where do you live, George?
I'm in Bossier City, Louisiana. That's the northwest corner of Louisiana. Anybody's familiar with Barksdale Air Force Base? That's Bossier City. So
have you asked it whether or not there are underground alien bases at all?
No, that hasn't cropped up. However, we were researching a park in Bossier City that is adjacent to Barksdale Air Force Base. That for whatever reason, over many years, when I would take a walk from my house to the park, around the park, and back to the house, it's about a 3-mile walk. It's a good little way to start the day. And there was a time when there was a great, beautiful, hard frost over the softball field at the park. And so I said, whoa, this is cool. Let me take a picture of this frosty field, put it on Facebook. It's a nice little picture. And I did. I posted it. And got a number of responses back pretty quick. George, hey, that's a beautiful field, but what's with the blue tennis ball? I said, what? So I went back to look at the photograph, and lo and behold, in the picture at the bottom of the frame was a blue sphere hovering above the ground. And I said, well, what on earth? Because I didn't see that. So, okay. So the next day I take the same walk, stop at the same place, take the photograph, and lo and behold, there's another orb in that photograph. Okay, I know this, it's early morning. We got the rising suns. It could be a lens flare or something, although it did not have the appearance of a flare. And this kind of kept up for about a week. Not every day, but just about every day. I would take the walk, take the photograph, and somewhere in the photograph, there will be a very distinct three-dimensional orb. And I said, okay, something's going on here. So I sent a handful of the photographs out to Arizona to Dan and asked him to, Dan, take your pendulum and see if you can figure out what's going on here. And a day or two later, he sent me back a note that, okay, the orb is a spirit. It's the spirit of someone known to you, but not in this lifetime. Hello, where'd that come from? But he confirmed it again and said, okay. So this orb that my camera is photographing, I don't see it, but the camera does pick it up, is very consistent. Was a blue orb. It had some texture to it, kind of had a little sparkle to it, so we called it the blue sparkling. And I put the question to some of my psychic colleagues, and they tuned into it. Yes, this is the spirit of 19th century American actress Kate Bateman. So, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll do a lot of research and learn everything I can about Kate Bateman.
So how did you find that out? We just ask a bunch of names until you finally got one?
I'm following my intuition. Someone known to me, but not in this lifetime. Okay. And then I get the thought, look for 19th century American actresses. That's out of the blue. So that's what I was searching, was 19th century American actresses. And that's what led to Kate Bateman showing up over and over and over again. And finally determining that, yes, this was the spirit of Kate Bateman. She went about this kind of convoluted way of getting my attention to set up a conversation and to have her be a part of the research team that Dan and I and some other folks had put together for the books.
All right. Tell us about, I guess this is Dan's story, but could you tell us about the release of the self-trapped spirit in the tombstone? That sounds interesting. I know that,
What he's,
I guess that's up Dan's alley, but.
Yeah, but I know the story, so I can give the gist of it. Dan was at, he was in one of the saloons in Tombstone, part of a big tour group. It kind of ended the day there at the bar, and everybody was, talking, chatting, having a good time. A lot of these people were paranormal researchers, and there was one lady who was convinced that she was seeing something. And then one of Dan's friends who was there, who's very intuitive, he picked up, yes, there are. And Dan didn't have his pendulum with him, so he borrowed somebody's bracelet. Again, a weight on a string. It doesn't have to be a particular stone or rock.
Yeah.
And he started questioning, is there an individual here? Yes. Is there another individual here with you? Yes. And what it led to was you had the spirit of an individual who was murdered in that saloon back in the 19th century. And it turned out that the other individual there was the person who was killed. And the situation was that the individual who murdered the person would not leave. That he was so fearful of hellfire and damnation that he just wouldn't leave. And it took the return of the spirit of the individual that he killed to reassure him that nothing bad's going to happen. Look, everything's fine. And made his peace with everything. And then both of them were able to just move on. And that was a very powerful moment. It's several of the people, according to Dan, including Dan himself, I mean, they were absolutely teary-eyed with just the power of that particular encounter.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I actually just watched the new Ghostbusters Frozen Empire with my parents, and they show how all kinds of spirits get in all kinds of different devices, whether it be a clock or a piece of a sock. I mean, anything, they can get in anything. It's crazy. Do you ever find any spirits in anything else?
Well, I mean, we inhabit a world of spirits.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of whether there's any reason for us to have some sort of interaction or contact with them. My general position is that if there's something I need to know, I'll know it. Or I'll have a sudden desire to make a query or ask somebody something or check out something.
Yeah. That seems really interesting stuff here. Now, when you say here you use the pendulum in conjunction with other psychic methods, what other methods are you using?
An example would be if I'm holding a session specifically to learn more about, say, Kate Bateman's life. We would have a couple there. He's a pendulum dowser, very, very skilled dowser. She's a medium. She has medium skills. And then there's another individual who also usually joins us, and she has a full range of skills. She's just the skill sets that she has is just phenomenal. And I'll begin the session, and in this case, say would be Kate Bateman. She would, she's there in the room and she's very available to the other individuals. I mean, the two women, I mean, they're seeing her, they're talking with her, or they're doing excellent channeling. They can describe what Kate is saying, but then there'll be a slight change in vocabulary to where they're not describing what Kate is telling them. Kate's going to go ahead and just come through them directly. It's a real subtle process, and it's just fascinating.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, A Gnome, a Candle, and Me? What exactly is that book about there?
Oh, gosh, that's an old book that I put together for my daughter when she turned 4. That's been a few years. But what I did was I've been writing poetry all my life, and I just decided it was time to take my collection of poetry and other little short essays and find a way to put it into book form. And I came up with the idea of, okay, I'll set up a scenario where I'm working on all this verse by candlelight late at night in my study, and perched on my shoulder, sometimes approving, sometimes not, of what I'm writing, is a little gnome. And so I use that format in the book, where I would have the verse, and then I would have in italics the gnome's commentary on what I wrote. And mostly it was pretty good, but not always.
Yeah. Was it kind of a kid's book then?
No, but it was so simple that she could read it and understand it. But no, it wasn't a kid's book. It was just a collection of my verse and gnome commentary, which was a lot of fun to write.
Okay. It says here that you guys did a Colorado murder case. I guess that's up Dan's alley too, but I mean,
that's Dan's alley. I really can't address that because I don't have all the specific details that you would have to tell the story. I'll just have to defer on that one. I really can't speak for Dan on it.
Okay. How many people do you think are out there that actually are getting results from doing this?
You talking about Pendulum?
Yeah, because I mean, obviously I've seen it before in movies and stuff, but I mean, it just does yes or no answers. It doesn't like move in a direction where you need to go or anything like that. Like if you're out in the woods and you know you're pretty close to something, you couldn't ask it like which direction could I go, and it kind of start moving the direction.
Let me give you an example. Back to the term Morlock, which came up with Lindsay Higgins. Lindsay Higgins, her family is a family of restaurateurs. And for a while back in, several decades ago, they leased a one-time train station in Shreveport and turned it into a restaurant kind of based on a railroad thing. And while they were running the restaurant, Lindsay was like 2 or maybe 3 years old. She would be in the upstairs portion of the building in her room, pretty much just amusing herself. And apparently one day, little 2 or 3 year old Lindsay just got kind of bored of being in the room and went over to the window. And this is an old train station, so you're talking floor to almost ceiling, very heavy double hung windows. And around that time, there was a couple coming into the restaurant. And as they were approaching the entrance, they happened to look up on the second floor balcony, and there's little Lindsay out there just walking around and just having a grand old time out on the balcony. So this couple went inside and alerted her parents that there's a child up on your balcony. Of course, they rush up there. Bring Lindsay back in, close the window, and her father's just kind of perplexed because there's nobody upstairs who could open the window, and certainly no way little Lindsay was going to open the window. So he had to ask, well, Lindsay, how did the window get open? And she said, oh, my friend Morlock opened it. And that created a bit of an issue. Who's Morlock? Oh, Morlock and I do things together. It was her unseen friend, if you will, except her unseen friend could manipulate objects, obviously. And that got Dan and my attention. And that's the first time we'd encountered that level of manipulation of a physical object. And a little bit later that day, we were going to do some dowsing in the oldest cemetery in Shreveport. And we asked Morlock, by chance, or were you buried in this particular cemetery? And we got a yes answer. And well, okay, well, when we go to the cemetery, can we ask for directions to your specific gravesite? And we got a yes on that. So we went to the cemetery and using the pendulum and asking yes or no questions. Do we walk west? Yes. No. Do we walk west 30 feet? Yes. Do we turn left up here on the sidewalk? No. Do we turn right? Yes. Just that kind of simplistic questioning. And finally, we arrived at a small family plot. Is this our destination? Yes. Well, the family plot was the W.D. Woodworth family. We had no idea who W.D. was, but we were led to be acquainted with W.D. And W.D. was a big contributor in some of our early Paranormal Pendulum books. He's quite the rascal, a really fun personality, disembodied, but very much there and very much able to communicate by means of the pendulum. So that's how we met W.D. and why he appears in our first couple of books. Quite the character.
All right. What did you ask the pendulum about the sky people? What were some example questions you can give us? I mean, I'm sure it's in your book, right?
Yeah. What we were concerned with, first off, were these visitors who came from the sky, were they three-dimensional? Were they physical? And we got definite confirmations. Yes, these were physical people. Could they interact physically with the villagers? Yes. Could they shake hands? Yes. Was it possible for them to have sex even? Yes. And that led to a whole line of understanding some of the hereditary components of the villagers with respect to pretty much the medicine man or the shaman, whichever word you want to use. That individual with that skill set would be a descendant of the family that interacted with the sky people so many generations ago. So there was some ability apparently imparted to that particular family line that was tapped in future generations as, well, this will be the medicine man, or in many cases, the medicine woman.
All right. Have you asked any question? Did you ask if they were interdimensional at all?
What I understand is that these books come primarily on specific historical sites where there were known villages in the mound building culture in Louisiana and Mississippi, and in the cliff dwelling cultures over in Arizona, Utah. The earliest time frame we had was 4,000 years ago, when these villages were at their height. The sky people, it turns out, yes, they did come in craft. That the craft apparently did not necessarily touch the ground. For some reason, the craft could not make contact with the earth. At Poverty Point in northeast Louisiana, the main feature of the ancient site is a huge, huge mound that was constructed by the villagers. Archaeologists say they constructed it in 90 days. It was like 120 feet long, 70 feet high, and it was just a huge thing. But one of its purposes was it was a platform for the craft to hover just slightly above when it visited that village.
So did you ask about giants at all? I mean, the mounds, so a lot of speculation around mounds is that they're burial sites for giants.
No, there's this particular mound is not a burial. It's strictly it is a feature constructed by the inhabitants symbolizing earth meeting sky. That seems to be what the intent was. And by going up on this mound, you're closer to the sky, you're closer to the sky people, if you will. So it was a place of symbolism. Curiously, on a trip there with our medium, she was really picking up on stuff and was really intrigued that one of the main functions of this huge mound was to perform weddings. Again, the merging of the sky and the earth. And of course, when you have two people merging, well, what better place than the top of the mound? So that was kind of refreshing.
Now, you specifically asked if they were 3-dimensional? Or did you ask if they were 3-dimensional or, I mean, even above? I mean, I like to think that these beings live in a higher dimension than us, like maybe five dimensions or 6 dimensions that they exist in.
Fifth dimension came up on occasion. Again, that's a frequency that there's no form to it. There's no material to it. It's just a very good frequency from which things can be created.
Oh, I mean, we don't really have any idea. I mean, we can't. Our brains can't even fathom what the 5th dimension is. It's just impossible for us to even try to understand it. I mean,
and
we can't. That'd be like, something that lives in a 1-dimensional plane of existence wouldn't have any idea what 3 dimensions looks like.
Oh, sure.
All right. Well, I mean,
we got our hands full with 3. That's okay.
Yeah. Well. It's actually quite simple, 3 dimensions, right? It's very easy. We're the amateurs here. Right? We don't know anything. How you doing, Conundrum? I see there's some interesting questions here from people. I see that's my my Star Trek sound is me getting a text. I don't know if anybody can hear that. Somebody was asking where can they actually buy one of these things? I think that the point is you got to make it yourself, right?
No, you can buy them online.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but wouldn't it be better if you actually handcrafted it yourself? I mean,
you're probably
more connected to it then.
Right? You'd have a little more feel for it. And again, like I did with this one, this is just a turquoise from my late wife's jewelry box, and just this little red cord. And blue and red's kind of pretty, and all right, and it works fine.
Yeah. So all you guys out there, if you want to, I would recommend giving it a try. Make yourself a pendulum, and try to focus. You got to focus your questions, right? You got to kind of be. Do you have to ask it out loud, or can you ask it in your mind?
Doesn't matter. As long as it's precise and can be answered yes or no.
And which is it, yes or no again? If you could tell us, I don't remember. Was it clockwise is yes, and counterclockwise is no?
When a person gets the pendulum, they set it the way they would like. Okay, I like a clockwise circle for yes, and then a counterclockwise for no. There are people who do just the opposite. It's whatever the individual wants. Because again, there's absolutely nothing in this that affects anything. It's totally inert.
All right. So you can kind of I guess you have to decide before you ask the question which way it's going to be spinning to answer your question, right?
No, you ask the question and then it moves.
Yeah, but you have to know what it's saying, right? Or you have to know if it's yes or no.
Well, if it's established that if it's a clockwise swing, that means yes. If it's a counterclockwise swing, that means no.
So you just establish it before you answer the question. You tell whoever's turning it. Obviously, with the guy that was trapped in I guess with let's see here, Morlock, he was the one that was actually moving the pendulum, right? answering your questions on where to go. So he would have to know which direction to move it in.
No, he would be conveying the information to our subconscious. Our subconscious mind would then very subtly manipulate our fingers to produce the yes answer or to produce the no answer, or to just kind of hang there and say, rephrase the question.
Okay. All right. And Conundrum wants to know, is quartz a crystal? I believe it is. I believe quartz
Yeah.
can be crystal. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do believe that. He says he's not sure, but I believe it is. I have some cool quartz here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can hold this up here so people can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
there it is. I'm trying to see. That's a pretty cool one there. That's just quartz, but it's like crystals. It's
find that all over Arkansas.
Yeah, I got some cool ones. There was a rock store that was going out of business and had like I think it was a 50% off sale, and my wife and I went down there and stocked up on some cool stuff.
Heck yeah.
It's pretty neat. So yeah, that's where we are. So does anybody have any questions? I think we're at the question time. If anybody has any questions, now's the time to ask. Just put it in the comment box. Don't forget to like the video. If you're listening, it does help it get to more people. You know how the YouTube algorithm works. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button. You'll get notified when we go live. Also follow me on Twitter, or X, I guess now. It's Conflict Radio. And follow me over there, and you'll be able to know when we're going live. I normally post the day of or the day before when the guest is, and then you know how it is. Sometimes people cancel on you. Sometimes you cancel on people. It happens. It's just the way of the world. These interviews are always, I guess, right? You probably got interviews scheduled for months from now. So it's always hard to tell exactly what's going to happen, in a couple months when you do schedule these shows. So I usually don't post the schedule until the day of or the day before when I actually had the link ready. All right. So Conundrum wants to know, are crystals from the ocean better than the ones from the ground? I guess, would you know that at all?
I have no idea. Again,
it's not really crystal dude that we're talking to. So
yeah. And again, the pendulum, there's nothing to it. So if you're using a crystal for the weight on the pendulum, it's a pretty pendulum, but the crystal itself has no effect on the swing.
All right. Terrence Willis wants to know, great show. Thank you so much. How far back do the sightings with the sky people go?
The of the villages that we researched, the earliest date of an individual having an encounter with the village shaman who was a liaison with the sky people, that would have been 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's a very long time.
Let's see. Does the pendulum come from the sky people? I guess it's not really a... do we have any idea how far back the pendulum goes, or knowledge of the pendulum goes? How far back have you been able to research it?
Again, this is you're talking about dowsing, which is using some device to focus your conscious mind, allowing your unconscious mind to tap into information that you wish to know. With dowsing rods, you want to know is where's some water, and the rods will act accordingly when you are physically near a source of water. It's the same process with the pendulum and anything else you're looking for or asking about. But again, with the pendulum, as long as it can be answered yes or no. And with the rods, it would be, down or up or across, depending on how you set it up.
Yeah, it's pretty common, I guess, back in the day where people used these rods all the time to find water, even oil. I mean, they actually worked.
Yeah. And they work. They get the results. You find oil, you find water. A friend of mine not too long ago found a missing piece of jewelry.
Well, I'm glad he found it. Sometimes that stuff get pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Conundrum says here up. I guess here up here. Conundrum says, did the sky people have craft, and
Yes.
what craft would it be? At like a drop shape craft? Do you have any idea what the shape of the craft would look like?
No, there were a couple of sessions where we were specifically inquiring about the craft, not so much the little craft that would come down to the village, but the larger craft where the sky people had more of their activities. And what we got was something totally unexpected. It was just, whoa, we couldn't even have imagined the information that we were getting. And this particular communication was with the chief of a village in western Mississippi. It's called Moundville. And we had a connection with the chief who was there 1,000 years ago or something. But he was one of the individuals from the village who the sky people actually took up into their craft. That apparently was not uncommon. And he was describing what he was seeing and experiencing inside the craft. And that's why I'm just saying it was nothing we ever would have conceived of, imagined, certainly expected. It's kind of hard to describe. It's in the book. We talk about it in the book, because the whole thing was just, whoa, hello, never thought that this is how it would work or what the nature would be.
Yeah. Can you
basically you may have come across descriptions of the craft that of other craft, and there's been some sort of illusion. It almost seemed like it was alive. Well, yes, the craft is very much alive. It does have a consciousness, and you interact with that consciousness, and that's what makes it go, makes it function, and allows it to produce whatever it is that you intend.
So if it's a consciousness, has it had consciousness put into it, or does it give birth and like have sex with other crafts?
Didn't ask those questions.
Well, those are questions I would ask, that's for sure. You know, if it's alive, how does it create new ones? Does it create little baby ones? You know, that sort of thing. Let's see here. Terrence wants to know, have you ever been able to see any artwork or drawings of the sky people?
If I have, I'm not aware of it.
All right. I think, I mean, even down in the Midwest, if you guys ever check out, there's a channel on YouTube called Desert Drifter, where this guy just hikes around the Midwest and he goes to all of these ancient sites and drawings on walls and things like that, where you could see the drawings that they make and stuff. And I swear there are times where he's showing alien creatures that have been on the side of these walls for 4,500 years.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
Or 4,000, 5,000 years. And it's amazing. I think, you know, we've all seen them. I mean, we've all seen them in hieroglyphics and in ancient writings on ancient tablets. I mean, that it's there. And I mean, it's pretty obvious that
and what we discovered,
something else is on Earth here.
Yeah, what we discovered in our research was that the relationship between the sky people and the villagers, it was totally natural. There was nothing supernatural about it, or the gods are coming down. No, they're just these people, whoever they are, they can do things we can't, and they're kind of cool. They teach us a lot of things that make our lives much better. So it was a very easygoing, interactive relationship, as best we can tell.
Yeah. Davy Jones Locker says, can you communicate with the Sasquatch people at all?
I have not made that attempt.
All right. Well, that's something else you can get into, man. You should.
Again, we were very focused in our research because there's so many questions you can ask. And if you started asking too many questions, we'd never finish the book.
Yeah, Conundrum says he's seen craft fly over his town, and it's almost like a drop shape. Oh, that's pretty interesting stuff. And Alpha Cod says here, are you speaking of villages in Brazil with recent encounters too? No. I don't think we covered that at all. Have you asked any questions about whether or not these people are still here?
Oh yeah, there's still interactions.
Yeah, of course there are. All right, Dr. Strangelove, how you doing, buddy? He wants to know, can a pendulum communicate with another pendulum?
Can a rock communicate with another rock?
Well, I mean, can they?
I don't know.
Uh,
I'm not a rock.
Have you ever tried using two at the same time and got different answers?
No.
No. Have you
Again,
done two?
I'm specifically using a pendulum for research, not to see what all it can do for entertainment or tricks or anything.
Yeah, I mean,
like
like have what I'm saying is that have you and Dan ever been somewhere and you both have a pendulum out at the same time and one's saying one thing and the other's saying another?
No.
Have you
We've
ever
not.
had both of you ever had one out at the same time?
Oh, frequently when we have sessions, there'll be more than, particularly when I've got sessions here in Bossier, there'll be 2, maybe 3 individual pendulums going. Now, the pendulums will be shielded from sight, so that you can't see what the other person's pendulum is doing. So we eliminate that kind of influence. But it's always uniform. I don't think there's ever been an instance where they were not in sync.
Top Taz wants to know, is the third eye connected to any of this?
I think the third eye is what is activated, the sixth sense, if you will. With the pendulum, it kind of focuses the conscious mind, allows that unconscious, which is part of the sixth sense, to access the information from whatever source is necessary.
All right. Terrence Willis says, thanks, guys. Great show. What was the most surprising thing you have found in your research?
Boy, that's a question. The dearly departed love to talk.
Oh, I bet they do.
Yeah. They do. They do. It's very interesting how even with just the pendulum, let alone going with the mediums, but just carrying on a conversation by means of the pendulum, you can get a real sense of personality present. That was surprising. I wouldn't say it's the most surprising, but I was surprised that there's a level of connection there with the other entity that, okay, yeah, this is transcending just a little rock spinning around. I'm feeling some of the energy that is making that rock spin, I guess might be the way to put it.
All right. Let's see here. All right, I guess we're all caught up. Hey, man, I had a great question for you in my head while you were answering that one, and now I just don't remember what the heck it was.
Don't you hate that?
Oh, it's the worst. Hopefully it comes up here pretty soon. What can you tell us about? Have you asked it at all whether or not they were fallen angels?
No. Again, the use of the pendulum has been specific to the research topics that are in the books. Really did not use it as a broad source of information or whatnot. I'm very focused on its use.
All right, I think I know what it was here. Conundrum said, I would say a rock can interact with a rock.
Of course.
And the idea I had about that was a rock could also be a living thing that's living in a higher dimension that we just don't, we're looking at it and it's just a rock, but it's something so much more.
Yeah.
We don't, I think that's a lot of things. I think that, I think trees communicate with each other, and we know sure. Mushrooms do.
Sure. Now, from a very early age, my general philosophy was to treat everything as if it is self-aware.
Yeah.
Period.
And it's really the best way to go with it, because there's no telling. I mean, a one-dimensional being might look at us and we're just, we're a rock, know? I mean, we don't have any idea, what these things really are. I mean, we can only see 3 dimensions. So
right.
Davy Jones says, has anything ever followed you home?
Not in the sense I think you're referring to. No. No.
He's talking about, I would assume, an entity of some kind.
Yeah, no, we're not. That's not the conversation we're having. That's not the arena that we're exploring.
Yeah. Has anybody ever followed you home anyway?
No. Well, the closest thing would be a Kate Bateman.
Oh, there you go. She liked you.
Well, it seems like that we have I'm learning that it seems like we have a history.
All right, man. Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up. Why don't you know what? We have one last question for you. We always ask all of our guests, and that is, do you know who Corn Pop is?
No.
No. All right. Well, Corn Pop is a bad dude. That's the answer. We asked that of everybody, so we had to ask that of you. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? And if you could, Dan was in here. Well, I guess if you can't, I can tell people where they can find him. But why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, George?
That'd be my website, www.georgesewell, SEWELL.com. Be sure you got that middle initial E, otherwise you'll get some other fellow in New York City. Nice guy, I'm sure, but he's not me.
All right. Yeah. Let's see here. Terrence says, what do you think the sky people are trying to teach us? Do you think that they're currently trying to teach us anything?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you think they're trying to teach us?
I think there's a worldwide effort that's going on to raise the collective consciousness of humans. And I know that they're a part of that. There may be some subsets that may have extra attention because the populations or the individuals are able to move a little quicker or something. But that's what I'm picking up as a big part of what's going on in the present.
It's a great awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the sky people do you think there's different races of them here?
Yeah.
Do you think they're, huh?
Yeah, they're not homogenous.
Do you think that they're all good?
Look at human beings. I hang with the good people. I'm not interested in the others. So I'm sure it's
you know what? That's such a great answer. That really is such a great answer. Okay, well, I guess that's gonna wrap us up, guys. Dan can be found at www.fournightspress.com and www.danbaldwin.com. He had mic issues and couldn't make it on the show. The links are in the description box below. George, thanks so much for taking the reins, I suppose, and holding on. I hope I didn't make things awkward. Sometimes you gotta ask the hard questions, and
sure, love questions.
That's just the way it is. And
yeah.
And thanks so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. It's a lot of fun.
All right, guys. Until next time, everybody. I guess we're going to be back on Thursday. If I have anything before then, I will let you all know. I am coming up on some weeks where we're going to have 2 shows a week, but I don't think next week is one of them. I have an appointment. I actually have to go and I did something to my foot, and I have to go to a. Oh goodness, what are those called? Those neurologists. Yeah, I got to go to a neurologist next week. So that's going to be early in the week, and there's only 1 show next week. But we are working on going to 2 shows, maybe 3, 4, 5 shows a week. So we'll see what happens. Thanks so much, George, for coming on. Sure. Until next time, everybody, batten down the hatches and be safe. All right, guys, you still there? You guys still there? Let's see who's here. I would have more questions. Yeah. Conundrum, how you doing? A little bit of an after show for you guys. I guess dude just took off. I don't think he enjoyed being on our show very much. How you doing, Top Taz? I'm gonna chat with you guys a little bit. The show's over, but we're gonna stick around and try to get this last 15 minutes in. I do like doing 90-minute shows, but I don't know. I think without Dan on the show, I don't think he was prepared to come on for a full 90 minutes. So that's what that was. And I'm gonna put those notes away. And if you guys want to hang on for a quick second, I'll go get my book and tell you what I've got scheduled. Hang on a sec. I got to get it. It's in the other room. I'll be fast. Hang on. All right. So let's see here. Let me get rid of this so you guys can at least see the outside here. It's getting dark and I've got storms coming. Oh, what the heck? Go away. There we go. I do have some storms coming and it's getting crazy. What in the world is that on the screen there? Are you guys seeing this? There's like a weird reflection going on the, I don't know what that is, if that's outside or what in the world is happening there. Okay, so let's see. We got everybody here. I still see there's some people in here. Yeah, it's a TV. Yeah, that is what it is, isn't it? It's reflecting off the glass. I got the TV muted in there. Okay, so next week I've got the 25th scheduled with Rachel Florentino, and then that's the 25th. Now all these times are going to be 7:30 Eastern. Now August I'm filling up. On August 1st, we're going to have Courtney Brown remote viewing. I've got Derek Gilbert scheduled on the 6th, Scott Mitchell on the 8th, Gary Wayne on the 13th. Haven't got the 15th scheduled yet. I'm working on it. Ali Sedaden on the 20th. Brad Olson again on the 22nd, which is going to be fun. Geraldine Orozco is coming on the 29th. I've got David Lanier on the 2nd of September. Preston Dennett on the 5th. And that's all I've got so far. I know that so there's some big names and some really good shows coming up, which I find great. It's fascinating, and I hope you guys enjoy the show. Like I said, not every show is going to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to be for this show, because I don't pull punches in my asking questions. And to be quite honest with you guys, if he hadn't have done a demonstration with that pendulum, I would have booted him off the show, because I don't like a lot of people, and you'll find when you do this kind of work, a lot of people are just trying to sell you something, and a lot of what they say is bullshit. And if I find out, if I feel like a guest I'm having on is bullshit, just trying to sell something, I'm going to boot them off. And that's just the way we go here, and that's the way it is. So so he kind of saved it there for himself, I guess, by doing something that it just blows my mind, like why he wouldn't. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why wouldn't you show us what, an example, something. Anyway, that's just the way it is. I'm really excited to have Courtney Brown on. He was really hard to get a hold of. I'm really excited for that show. I'm also really excited for Derek Gilbert and Gary Wayne coming back. Alex Saladen's going to be great. Another Brad Olson show coming up. We're going to talk about more developments going on with Antarctica. I'm working on a special with I don't even want to say it. I've been digging into microwave weapons, and microwave energies and mind control. And there's actually there's proof now that the government can control your mind. It's been admitted in Senate. There's that they can control, and they can actually pick up too on what you're thinking, your thoughts. If you're thinking something, they can actually pick up on that by the brain waves that are produced, that they can measure now. They can identify certain waves for certain words that you're thinking. And I believe that that's already being utilized in the advertisement industry. I don't know if anybody has noticed, but I've been noticing. We all know that you can sit at the TV or you know watch YouTube or whatever, especially YouTube, and I'll be talking to my wife about something like, oh, we need to get cat food, and then 5 minutes later I got a cat food ad on the commercial. I mean, we know they're listening to everything that we're saying, but there are times, I promise you guys, that I'll be thinking I need to go to the store and look at this, or I need to go to the store and look at that, and then I'll also get an ad for what I'm thinking. And I'm not the first one that's talking about this. There are other people that are starting to point out that this is happening, and this is scary. This is scary stuff. This scary path we're going down. If we can actually start thinking about things, and if you don't think that they're so far ahead in technology than we could ever imagine, and if you think about it, this is why they need to do a false flag alien invasion. If they do a false flag alien invasion, they'll have an excuse to show their tech that they can use in wars, and they're gonna. It's crazy the path that we're going down. I mean, just look at what happened on Saturday with the ex-president and the ball that was dropped, and how they just literally, I mean, for 5 minutes, they're looking at a threat on a roof through scopes on the counter team, literally on a sloped roof, and they never moved him. They never moved him, and how he turned his head, and that literally saved his life. And I mean, we have gone into a different timeline, I believe. And I believe we crossed one this weekend, if not a little bit before. And I don't think anything could stop what's coming. I think we are on a very positive timeline for humanity. I really do. But there's going to be a lot that still has to happen. And there's going to be a lot of bad things that happen. And but I believe that humanity is on a good timeline. I really do. At Top Taz, you say it's all a simulation. Man, it could be. It could be. So, I mean, enjoy the show. I mean, we can all say it's a simulation all day long. As my wife says, we still have to pay our simulation rent. So, what are you going to do? You still got to eat your simulated food and go shopping in the simulated store. That's just the way it is. So if that's true, that doesn't really change anything. It's just, but I do believe that we're on a positive timeline. I really do. I mean, otherwise it would have been over. It'd have been over on Saturday. And think about it. I mean, without that hope of somebody actually taking control of this country that wants peace in the world, without that hope, I think that we'd already be in a major world situation here, because I think that's the only thing that's holding back the powers that be on the other side of Ukraine. So, is that there's hope coming, and if that hope doesn't come, then there's going to be no holds barred. And let's hope that we're on the right timeline. I really believe we are. I mean, think about that. They literally sat there for like 5 minutes looking at this dude through their scopes and did nothing until he fired that shot. And I mean, all he did was turn his head, and he's still alive. It's crazy. Absolute crazy. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you liked the little bonus time, and I'll catch you guys later. And remember, you know, don't just stock up on food for yourself. Try to think of your neighbors. You know, a lot of them are asleep as shit. They don't have any idea what's going on. Buy a 50-pound bag of rice, throw it in your closet, and you maybe trade with them, or give them something, because we gotta have to take care of each other, and that's really the point of us existing, is to help us all enjoy life better. That's why we're here. I'm here to make my neighbor's life better. They're here to make my life better. That's the reason we should all be here, is to make everybody's life better. So, let's try to do that as best that we can, and batten down the hatches. It's getting crazy. Be safe. Have a great night, guys, girls, everybody.